I'm happy that I'm recovering from addiction. I'm happy that I'm a trauma survivor. I'm happy that I'm a trans man in the world right now, and got to do something with that.
Welcome to this episode of Safe Home Podcast for struggling teens and their families finding their healing path. I'm Beth Syverson, a mom of an 18-year-old son, Joey, who has been dealing with drug addiction, depression, anxiety, and suicidal ideation for several years. I'm walking beside him as he struggles with his recovery while I work on my own personal growth and healing. This episode has some frank discussion of substances, mentions of suicide attempts, and I even drop an F-bomb. So just to warn you, today's guest is Lona Currie. He's the host of two podcasts, the Transgender Mentor and Recovery Soul Food. He is a recovered drug addict and a trans man. We're going to have a wonderful conversation today. Well, welcome to Safe Home, Elsie. Great to have you here.
Well, thank you so much. I'm honored truly to be here. I appreciate what you're doing in the community and hope that I can somehow be of service in some way. So thank you.
So grateful. So I met you through Pamela Topjian, who I interviewed a couple of weeks ago. She was on episode 27 about hypnotherapy, and she co-hosts your Transgender Mentor show.
She does.
With you.
Yes.
As the straight ally.
Yep.
And you're the trans expert on all things trans.
Yeah. It's possible.
It's a great show. I mean, you can't speak for every trans person, but it's a great show that you can just ask anything, right?
Yeah.
It's just to help people understand what's going on, right?
Absolutely. Pamela brings that point of view where she comes through for that whole demographic of allies that, we want to do something, but we're so afraid to offend that it kind of stops us sometimes from doing it. And so I felt like everything I've been through in my life is somehow a lesson to give back. And so I thought, when I experienced that in my own trans support group, where I found that I was so nervous, that I didn't feel safe there. I thought this has got to be how many people, and I met Pam, and Pam told me that's how she felt. And I thought, well, I want to do something, for not only just the trans community, but for, the cis ally community, because that's how it's going to change. It's not going to change because we yell loud enough. It's going to be more people just sharing that same heart of being able to see divinity in each one of us and not, and look past all the labels that make us feel safe,
Yes. Well, thank you for, putting yourself out there and being a role model and an example and a transformational force for your community and our community. I think that's really, really awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's an honor to get to do it. I'm happy that I'm recovering from addiction. I'm happy that I'm a trauma survivor. I'm happy that I'm a trans man in the world right now, and got to do something with that.
Did you ever think you would say that?
No. No.
I bet there were some dark days. You're like,
oh gosh, yes. No, never.
Don't want to be here.
No. Oh yeah.
So tell me, I know you used substances for a long time.
Yes.
How old were you when you started?
I was actually 11 years old when I discovered alcohol and what it did and why people, did it. My father was a weekend drunk. He was a drinker all through the week, but he was one of those functioning addicts. And I didn't meet him till I was 8 or 9, didn't really start spending time with him until I was about 9 years old. And that's what they did every weekend, was drink. And so I found that, as I got a little older, he, would offer me to have alcohol. And so basically I'd watch my little brother and drink alcohol, and I was holding all these secrets about what was happening at home. And so when I got the alcohol, I could escape from feeling foreign in my body, the abuse I was suffering at home. And I could also connect with my father, who I desperately just wanted to see me, and not feel, everything was because I was a girl, like everything to me was because I'd watch him with my little brother, be close to my little brother, but he would keep a certain distance from me. And so that translates back to a person. Like, I knew that I was different when I was 4, realizing gender. I knew that this
Mm-hmm.
wasn't right. And so that's what
Mm-hmm.
all that represented to me. So at home,
Yeah.
having that body being violated in a way that made it feel very female, at the same
Uh,
time trying to be seen by my dad and connect, this alcohol just was a
uh,
perfect storm for me at 11.
oh wow. And your dad's probably trying to connect with you by saying, "Here, have this drink.
Exactly.
We're here together as family. It's
Yeah.
all right. I
Yep.
I got you."
Yeah.
I hear a lot of parents say, "I'd rather they do it under my
That
roof,
was
so I'm going to give it to them
yep.
myself."
Yep. That was exactly their motto.
Yeah, probably figure you do it anyway,
Yep.
so I might as well give it to them. How do you think that worked out for you?
Well,
Would you recommend that strategy?
I really don't, because that did not work out well for me, nor do I believe it's worked out well for almost, any long time suffering addict. If you talk to a lot of
Mm,
people that were found addiction, they generally found some type of use early, because we're talking about
mhm.
11 years old, the brain's changing. I mean,
Oof.
we've all of a sudden just flooded an 11-year-old brain with every escaping
Ah,
dopamine,
yeah.
serotonin hit all at one time. And all of, that became the answer for me.
Yeah, I think especially at that age when your brain's not cooked yet, it's like fireworks, and then it's
Yes.
impossible to replicate that, and then you're constantly seeking for that
Yes.
stimulation again, like, "Oh my gosh,"
Yes.
and then you need more, then you need it
Yes.
harder or something or other.
Yes.
So where did that take you? Started with alcohol,
It started with alcohol,
then
and then, of course, I moved on to marijuana, but I don't even think marijuana really gave me it, that didn't really give me so much my gateway. What gave me the gateway into what I felt like was hard drugs at 12 years old was this
oh,
little inhalant that they called Rush back in the day,
mm,
and it was sold as VCR head cleaner, and you sniffed it, and it
oh,
gave you this, it was, an inhalant. So you sniffed it and it gave you this crazy rush, but it was gone real quick. And this
oh,
older boy, you know, let me have some of it, and immediately I was back over at at his house doing, I need some more. I want some more of that. How do I get some more? And I remember being that way that
wow,
first moment that,
wow.
something made that connection for me.
It clicked.
It
It
did.
clicked, and you were just gone from then on. Wow,
Absolutely. And everything that I
that's
did
terrifying.
went like that.
Uh-huh. Do you think you're particularly susceptible, maybe genetically,
Yes.
to addiction? Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Yeah, we think Joey, we don't know Joey's birth parents, but
Mhm.
I will bet you that there's some addiction in there because his
Absolutely.
addiction is also extremely strong. Like he does not goof around with stuff. He
Yeah.
just goes all out.
All out.
Give me all you got.
That's
The
it.
strongest thing, whatever the
Yep.
so by 12 you're using inhalants.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So you're at Radio Shack every week
Yeah.
trying to get some
Yeah.
more
Trying
VCR cleaner.
trying to get some VCR cleaner, chasing around
Oh
this
no.
one boy that had it, like a fiend already.
Oh
And then
man.
it what ended up happening from there is I started during that time, we're talking 13 and 14, when my body was really morphing out on me. I
Mm,
became
mm.
a self-mutilator. I hate that word because
Oh.
it sounds so Halloweenish, but that's what they called it, at that
Uh-huh.
time when I was going through that. And was still going through a lot of abuse at home. My mom had just married someone else who was equally as fantastic
Mm.
as the few before. Um,
Oh no.
so I had those issues. So I went in and out of these like little hospital stays where I would go for the 90 days,
Mm.
and so all throughout that time it would mostly be alcohol. Like alcohol seemed pretty easy to get in those
Yeah.
times, and it was here and there with the weed, but it was when I was 19 that opiates came into my
Mm.
awareness, and from that moment, that was all I ever wanted out of life was
Mm.
to feel that semi happiness, and it had to be an
Yeah.
alternative. And I thought I was really broken because I thought the
Mm.
only way I can experience any kind of happiness or peace or joy or anything is behind some type of artificial substance. Is this my life?
Oh,
And so,
wow. So you couldn't even imagine being without it,
no, no.
like you would die if you didn't have it,
Yeah,
or you would cease to exist. Like,
it was like I
who
could.
am I underneath all
Yeah,
this?
who am I? That was it. How can I mask all of this? How do I pretend to be okay in my skin? How do I carry
Mhm.
around all this pain? And I constantly carried the question of why me? I didn't
Mm.
see it as a, which most kids didn't see it as a greater purpose or anything
Yeah,
like that. People
yeah.
call you. I remember how angry I used to get when people would say, "Well, you're a survivor." And I would just get so angry and say, "But I don't want to be." Like I was tired
Oh.
of the fight
Ah.
within by
Mhm.
the time I was 19, 20.
Wow.
And that's how long you stay, fighting this fight within, and trying to deal with all the rest of it was just overwhelming to me. And
Yeah.
so opiates was a very easy fix for
Mm.
me. And it was in the 90s. So I had
Mm.
had a pretty major stomach surgery when I was 20.
Oh.
And
Uh-huh.
so after that, I had multiple stomach surgeries because they did that one wrong.
Mm.
So, and
Ah.
this was all in the 90s. So in the 90s, they were pushing pain
They're passing them
pills.
out like candy,
Oh,
right?
yeah. I
Jeez.
mean, they were so easy to get, but
Mm.
nobody ever told anybody that you could be addicted to them. So
Ay.
I didn't know what was happening to my body and my emotions when I would run out of these things. I didn't put the two together.
Oh. Were you just experiencing pain and just like, I need more pain
Yeah, I
pills?
was experiencing like full on withdrawals that I didn't even know were
Yeah.
withdrawals, with the,
Yeah.
with the vomiting and the chills and the restless legs and the
Oh.
diarrhea and the emotional stuff that just starts coming. I mean, it all just rushes back
Oh.
over you. And I ended up going down this really tainted road of going from doctor to doctor to doctor to
Mm.
doctor to doctor, and then naturally it leads to heroin because
Yeah.
eventually it does.
Yeah.
So
Eventually, the doctor won't say,
right.
okay, you can have some more.
No.
Eventually, you'll come to the end of the road, and then heroin's the
Yep.
next thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And you've been blacklisted throughout the whole medical
Ah,
community. When
yeah.
by the time you get to heroin, you've been blacklisted, and nobody within 3 states will give you even the smallest thing. It's
Mm.
you get that stigma already, and you feel like it's the
Yeah.
next natural step because the stigma's there already.
It's so horrible because they push it on you. They're handing them out like candy,
Yeah.
and then they get you hooked, and then they say, "Oh,
Yep.
no, you're
You're
bad
bad.
because now you're addicted, and no way are we going to help you." So,
Yep.
God, the healthcare system just drives me bananas.
Yeah.
It's so not helpful.
It's not.
So you found heroin. That's really scary and dangerous. And I understand that heroin makes you feel so
Oh
warm
yeah.
and
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why it's really hard to get off,
Yeah.
because like why would you want to leave that?
Yeah.
And then plus all the withdrawal.
Yeah, and the sickness is just terrible. Like, the sickness is it's so hard to explain to people. I remember early in my recovery when I was still really raw from
Mm,
addicted language to just the whole
mm.
persona that you are during that time. It takes a while to
Yeah,
start wearing off. And
I bet.
I remember in the beginning, our state attorney general had come and had a meeting with me, and I explained it to him in only terms I knew how. I was like, it just think of the creepiest devil, and just reaches down through your head and just pulls your toes and snatches you inside out. And he just
Mm.
sat there dumbfounded, that but that's how it felt to me at that time, where it's just like this living hell. And so now I explain it as the worst stomach flu you've ever had, mixed
Mm.
with the greatest depression you've ever known in your life, all at the same time. Like everything floods back as if the drugs had just been keeping it right outside. these little walls.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know how
it's
anyone ever
intense.
recovers from that. How do you push yourself through that when the
It's
heroin's just
intense.
sitting right there? Like, I could just get rid of this pain right now.
Yeah.
How long were you hooked on heroin then, or opiates in
For
general?
opiates in general, I would say at least 15 years of my life was
Wow.
spent, most of it on opiates and destroying relationships and
Ugh.
destroying my whole self-worth. I mean, it was just a complete it felt like it was going to be a lifetime, to the point
Mhm.
that you don't wake up and, wanna be here anymore, and you just hope that today is the last day,
Mm.
and then,
Gosh.
you know, people are dying around you, and then you wake up and you're
Mm.
angry that, it's a vicious
Ah.
cycle. It's hard to get out
Were
of.
you ever actively suicidal?
Oh gosh, yes. There's 2 times I should not be here
Mm.
still.
Wow.
And so, and many accidents. I've had many accidents during blackouts and different things where I've
Wow.
had so many head injuries that I developed epilepsy, and there there's just been so much damage done that, I didn't care if I was be as dangerous as possible.
Wow.
It,
Yeah. You're like, fuck it.
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
I got nothing else to lose,
I
right?
don't.
At a certain point.
I don't.
Mm.
And everything that you thought you would get to that was gonna make you happy, that, "Well, I'll be happy when I get to that,"
Mm.
I
Mhm.
had identified as a lesbian in the '90s, and the '90s were pretty cool. It was pretty cool to be a lesbian in the
Yeah.
'90s,
Yeah.
you
Ellen and
know?
all of that.
Absolutely. But I still knew that that wasn't my true identity, like, it gave
Mhm.
me the ability you know, to date and feel safe
Mhm.
and all of those things, but at the same time I knew that still didn't fit. But I hoped it would
Mhm.
fit enough that it would suffice, never stepping into, my true identity. And
Yeah.
that's why, it took recovery to get me to the place to be able to transition at 44 years old,
Oh, wow.
that's just how much
Wow.
healing had to happen before I could
Yeah.
be me.
So you had to recover first before you could
Yes,
even deal with your gender and all that.
absolutely.
Now, what caused you to not decide, or I don't know how did you recover? How did that happen?
Well, I just got to the end. I had had a little bit of I had had some gained some clean and sober time through MAT programs in the past.
Do you wanna explain what that is?
Yes, absolutely. That's medication assisted treatment, which is
Mhm.
generally your Vivitrol's, methadone, or Suboxone at this point. And so basically, it keeps the withdrawals in the body
Mhm.
down. It binds to the opioid receptors, and then it has the blocker in there.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I had gained some time in there where I was, just using my medication, and I was working, and, I had a home, and my wife and I had moved states away. I mean, I had already lived past getting a diagnosis of not having
Mhm.
it. I'd had some of that time, but I'd never had any time where I went within myself and just had this
Mm.
completely different awakening. I kept
Mm.
thinking recovery was just about being clean and sober. I didn't think it was about doing anything
Ah,
different. And
yeah.
so I just became one of those people that was just angry. I had a little bit of clean time, but I
Mhm.
was still just angry. I was still having all the same emotions, and I was didn't have a coping skill for them. So I was angry all the
Ah,
time,
yeah,
you
I
know?
bet. So you were clean and sober, but hadn't addressed the core issues
Right.
yet
Right.
that caused you to start using substances at 11 in the first place.
Yep. Absolutely.
But that must have been hard to face all of that. You had quite a bit of trauma.
Yes.
That's a lot for anyone to deal with. So how did you decide, okay, I'm going to stare this in the face and go deal with it, fight this dragon?
I had during the time that I had some of that clean time, I had built some relationships back in my life for the first time.
Mm.
And my son was he was about 11 or 12 at this time. And I just I got off of the program. I thought I made a good stab at it. I was doing it alone. I got off of the MAT by myself, and there was some withdrawals that
Mhm,
went there. But within 6
mhm.
months, I was back on full-blown heroin, and for 9
Mm.
months, I hid this relapse from everyone around me. I mean, we
Oh,
could have been
wow.
homeless. Our son never saw, and my wife relapsed with me. And this was her first time
Oh,
on
no.
heroin ever. So she's
Oh,
experiencing
no.
heroin for the first time. I'm in my last moments of this. I know at this point I cannot live this way anymore. Our son, we had to move in with my mom and her husband, which was not lesbian friendly. And so it
Mm,
was a very tough
mm.
place with a, strange energy to be in. And my son, well, he never saw us use, but he stressed out. Kids know things inherently
They
through
can tell
energy.
something's going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Something's not
Mhm.
right. And he ended up gaining like 100 pounds in 6 months. And we
Whoa.
took him to the doctor.
Whoa.
Yeah. And the doctor told us he's got something called Cushing's disease, which for
Oh.
adolescents is an overactive adrenal gland. So the stress hormone
Mm.
is cortisol is just
Mm.
overactive. And that's what was causing him to put on all this weight. And, when I heard that and I realized by looking at my son here that
Mm.
this stress, it's my job. Like I'm supposed to
Mm.
do better by him. And I got to.
Mhm.
And being this angry human being and in this relapse, this is not gonna work. So I gotta do something different. And I knew
Yeah.
in that moment I had to go back to MAT because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it when my body was sick. But I made a
Mhm.
different relationship with MAT. I went in with a
Okay.
different core set of core values when I went in. I was going to do this for my son because he deserved better of me. And
Mhm.
I didn't want to repeat the same mistakes. I wanted to really keep him from a lot of the same abuses that I went through. And I just
Mhm.
wanted to try to give him the best life possible. So I just made that decision not to be a hypocrite. So I went back to MAT, one with a strict program that had
Mhm.
great accountability. That's what I need, accountability.
Okay. Mhm.
And they
Mhm.
had great accountability. I made a deal with myself that I would only go to a certain milligram. And I kept it under 100 milligrams because I had to do methadone. Suboxone didn't click with my body. So I had to do the methadone. I only would go to a certain extent. And then I started dealing with myself because if I was still a little bit sick in my body, instead of going up past what I had set for myself, I knew that I
Mhm.
could be okay, that I could start becoming mindful and check in with
Mhm.
my body and start telling my body a different story about this
Mm.
medication. And
Mm.
I just forced that program to let me take part in every service that they had, whether it was rape counseling, I did it all. Rape counseling,
Good.
drug counseling, trauma counseling. I did all of it. And
Wow.
eventually that would be the same program that led me into HRT.
Oh, wow. So is this a community program or a nonprofit or is it your healthcare system?
It started out as a nonprofit. Now it's been bought by Trillium, but it's a pretty large in our area. It's Coastal Horizons,
Mm.
and they're pretty large in the state of North Carolina. And they have federal aid funded programs for
Mm.
MAT. They have a lot of great programs. They even had a housing program that
Wow.
we got into. So I went into this program, and I was going to force them to help me, and I was going to trust them.
Wow. Well, and it seems like they understood that people don't just use heroin just for fun.
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
reason people get into using these really hard substances that they're trying to cope with whatever
Yeah,
trauma,
yeah,
abuse, whatever's underneath there. So it sounds like they provided programs that helped people to figure out what that is and
yeah,
try to heal that.
yeah, they
Okay,
did.
so you worked through some of that. So that's when you were like, okay, I'm a trans man. Let's go do this thing.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
after you recovered from your substance use and worked through your sexual trauma
Yep,
from when you were a kid and probably some other
Yeah,
stuff. Then you're like, okay, I need to be who I am.
absolutely.
Went through hormone replacement therapy, right? Through the same
Yeah,
organization.
same organization.
That's
They had a
amazing.
medical program. Just so happened that the day I made up my mind to go and see a doctor about this, it was a brand new doctor. I had not seen her before. She was new to the practice. I go in and I go through this whole fake thing where she thinks I'm there for my stomach. And then before the thing ends, I get the nerve to tell her what I'm there for. And then she turns around and says, "Well, I am one of the only two HRT trans treatment doctors in this area." So I
Wow.
knew that this I had made the right decision, and that was just my
Wow.
sign that said, "You're on the path." And you have to use it
Wow.
because I was doing had built a pretty large online recovery following on Facebook. And I was
Okay.
doing videos unique because I didn't see anybody that was LGBTQ plus, and at that time I was still,
Mm-hmm.
identifying as
The
lesbian.
L.
Yep,
Uh-huh.
the L. So I was doing videos about people healing the roots so they could recover
Mm-hmm.
and not always worry about relapse. And I kept saying, you got to get to your roots. And I went on, and they had watched me grow in all this for like 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I thought about, well, maybe I should just stop and go through HRT and come back and start all over. And I thought again, that's a hypocrite. That's hypocritical. And if
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't be hypocritical with my son, I can't be hypocritical with my audience. They deserve to see me as my authentic self.
Mm-hmm.
And, I understand I may lose some. And I had sponsors at that time, and things were getting ready to they were taking off in my career as a
Uh-huh.
speaker and
Uh-huh.
and different things. And they kept telling me, you don't have to tell them. People won't know for a while, and you don't have to tell them. And
Oh.
and so I
Is your
did.
sponsor saying that?
Yeah. And so
Ah,
I
dang it.
I did. I told, and I've just kind of let them follow me with this journey of what true healing looks like. Like
Mhm.
whatever authentic is to you. That's what I hope
Mhm.
my life represents to you. Not
Mhm.
just trans
Mhm.
issues, but that if I can walk in my authentic shoes and the world
Mhm.
has to
Mhm.
see me, they're seeing my shadow work. You can do
Yeah.
your shadow work and become
Yeah,
who
yeah.
you authentically are.
Yeah, you're choosing to do it out in public,
Yeah.
basically,
Yeah.
to help other people, but not everyone has to do it like
Right.
that.
Absolutely.
You don't have to do it
Absolutely.
always on
No.
YouTube.
No, exactly not. But you never know who your life may touch, and if we spend time,
Mhm.
I figured out that I spent so much time trying to run from my authentic truth and run into the arms of what society, expected
Mhm.
of me or said is acceptable, and I never
Mhm.
fit in there anyway. And it's like, so the further
Yeah.
I got away from my authentic self, the more I used, the more I became
Mhm.
addicted, the more I sabotaged myself, harmed myself in many ways,
Mm.
physically and emotionally. And to know that the path back was just to stop and turn around and go back to
Mhm.
myself. All that
Uh-huh.
stuff that I listened to should be hidden. The
Yeah.
answer was to go back to that stuff. And,
That's
I think that if we learn how to just live authentically in our shoes, whatever shoes they may be,
mhm.
then we're walking in our divine purpose just by being who we are. And that touches other
Yeah.
lives around you, whether it's, through an amazing podcast or, somebody you talk to in the parking lot
Mhm.
somewhere. It doesn't matter. Your life touches somebody.
Yeah. Well, your story sure is inspiring, and not everyone is going to be trans or have such a giant transformation to become authentic. So
Absolutely.
your being willing to be vulnerable and open and honest with people is very inspiring because maybe somebody, you know, wants to quit their secretary job and go be a singer or something.
Exactly.
You know,
Yes.
it's not quite
Yes.
as big of a thing as uh, changing your gender,
Yes.
but it might feel
Absolutely.
huge inside that person, right?
Absolutely.
So everybody needs to find
Yes.
their own purpose. Now, did
Yes.
you get a lot of backlash? Did you lose your sponsors? Did your family turn on you, or Did it
Well,
work out fine?
it hasn't necessarily worked. It's worked the way it needed to, and I did get some backlash, and I still receive some, different, people
Mm,
that hide behind the keys and are able to express how they
mhm,
feel no matter how, you know, but that gives me motivation in the world because
mhm.
it still reminds me that the job's not done. We still
Yeah, there's
have
a lot of work to
people,
do.
yeah, we still have people that believe these things and that don't want to. They feel like it's wrong to have their minds opened. And so since it's
Mm,
easier to shut it down and then
mhm.
put a God period on it and say, well, God said, well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
God wasn't a white Western Anglican Christian, you know? It's
Yeah,
quite
oh,
amazing. But
it's gotten so convoluted.
it has. I mean, it really,
Mhm,
really has. And I think now is a time bigger than any time ever for us to have the opportunity to
mhm,
shift into a more godlike, Christ-like, whatever the name or label that you have for it
mhm,
is, and we begin
mhm,
to walk things out like our authentic selves. This
mhm,
changes the consciousness of so many of us as a collective. And then we just
mhm,
vibrate in a different world. And I think we're headed for that.
mhm.
And and I'm grateful to be a part of it. And I'm grateful that you're a part of it. And, all that we're
Yeah.
doing to speak out about our lives and families.
Yeah,
I
I
love
feel
it.
so like we're both on the same page for sure
Yeah.
about addiction and authenticity and, acceptance. Do you feel like with COVID and all this pandemic and the quarantines, I feel like it's a shift.
Yeah.
It's forcing a shift in the
Yes.
culture. Do you feel it?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
The whole globe is like being shaken like a snow globe. Like,
Yes.
come on, you guys, fix it
Yes.
up.
Yes.
Come
Yes.
on,
Yes.
make something better out of you
Yes.
guys.
Yes.
Oh, there's so much. Well, I am just so impressed with you. I'm so glad that I met you through Pamela,
Me
and
too.
I am admiring both of your podcasts. I've listened to both of them, and
Thank
they're
you.
on my subscribe list.
Oh,
And
thank you.
I will continue to follow your journey.
Thank
And
you.
I, I, I told Joey about you too, and
Awesome.
he's very excited to meet you sometime
Good,
too.
good.
So
I really, really, really want to
yeah,
meet him. He feels like a soul that I've known or something, just has that feel about
yeah,
him. So
he's a very old soul. He's been around a while.
I can believe that, and I can also believe that he's in this space that he's in because a lot of times too, a lot of the use that I did was I was a musician, and
Mm.
you always hear those things that drugs expand your mind and
Oh
all of
yeah.
the lies that you get into, but he's
Hmm.
searching for something
Hmm.
that's much deeper. He's on his journey, his path back
Yeah.
home to
Yeah.
him, and I think that he is an old soul, and that's why
Hmm.
he's in this thing with addiction because I don't believe anybody comes to addiction by accident. I believe that they are
Mm.
specially called. I think that they are
Mm.
divinely guided and inspired to do something
Hmm.
bigger, whether it be their own evolution or the evolution of a group around them. But
Oh,
it
interesting.
takes going to a place where you know nothing but bad to come back
Hmm.
and understand what truly is good. And I
Yeah.
think that right now, your young son is on his path away from himself, like I was
Hmm.
on my path away
Hmm.
from myself. And
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
further you get, the more separated from that,
Hmm.
that divine sense of connection to something bigger than you. If we could take the suffering out of things, it's the way we look at
Hmm.
things that takes away the suffering. And so I think if we can talk to young people in this time coming up through an addiction path and into recovery, that we can stop a great number of their years of suffering. We can't stop all their suffering, it's their path
Yeah.
home, but we can make it easier for them to get there faster.
To get out. That's what I'm hoping with my intentional choice to stay connected with him
Yes.
without enabling him, but
Yes.
that he will come out of it
Yes.
quicker
Yes.
and not languish for decades. And,
Yes.
that he will go, oh, I have people supporting me and I can do this with their help and da da da. Da.
Yes.
So I have
Absolutely.
a quick little story. He
Yay.
moved up to Oregon last week
Okay.
with these friends in a van.
Uh-huh.
God help me.
Yes.
Uh, what can possibly go wrong, right?
Right.
So they made it up
Oh,
to Oregon, and it's cold up there. It's
right.
January.
Yeah.
It's cold. They have no money. They have no food, nothing. So they called there's a community resource there.
God.
It's like a wraparound. They come and help
Uh,
whatever you need. So they gave them a sleeping bag and
thank
some food,
God.
and they were really great. It's kind of this new model of
Love that.
social workers instead of police
Yes.
handling
Yes.
homelessness, that kind of thing.
Amazing.
So I guess they were just really compassionate and helpful. Gave them a list of homeless shelters and a list of employers, and so like, oh, thank goodness. And he said, "Mom, they were so great. I asked them if I could work with them. He wants to do their job." I'm
That's
like, "Oh,
awesome.
sweetheart." I guess they chuckled at him, but perhaps he should, get
Right.
recovered a little bit more before he starts helping others. But I was so grateful that he was in that
Yes.
mode of wanting to help others,
Yes.
because I know if he can just survive through this,
Yes.
he will be like you and just be a light
Yes.
for others to say, "Okay, you can get through this, and here's
Yes.
how, and I'll help you." And
Yes.
he just has a real heart for that. So I hope soon that he will be in that place. And I thought
Yes.
that was so sweet. So
Yes, it
can
is.
I do your job?
And that's your
Oh,
vibration. That's the
oh,
vibration of what you have done in your own personal life that you and your wife have done by because it's not easy to stay connected to them and not enable. You know,
it is
it
not.
is not easy to separate from them completely, but it's less I mean, it's really hard to be connected to them and not
Yeah,
enable and keep
yeah.
that supportive, safe space. So, in that he's on this journey, your vibration is putting people in his path that are able to inspire him and look after him. And that's that little nugget that comes back to you and
Mhm.
says, here's your gift for the work that you've done.
Oh,
Here's how we're doing this. And so I
oh.
really think you're on an amazing path. You should be telling other people, and I'm so glad you are, how to do
Mhm.
that because that's the
Yeah,
worst part is the decision between enabling
yeah.
and not because people think they have to be
It's
mean.
really hard. Yeah, the tough love thing,
Yeah.
it's better than enabling for
Yeah.
sure, but you don't have to shut them out. You don't have to
Yeah.
shut them out.
Yeah.
The other night when he was driving up, he called at 2:30 in the morning, which I never like receiving those phone calls. I'm
Right.
like, "Oh
Yes.
god,
Yes.
who is this and what is going on?" And he's like, "Mom, we're out of gas and we have no money." Like, I wonder how you're gonna figure that one out.
Right.
I
Yeah.
know he was fishing around for money.
Yeah.
I'm like, he knows not to even ask.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
knows I won't give him money. But he hung up in kind of in a huff, and I'm like, "Ugh, I gotta make some more calls." But he
Right.
figured he figured something out. But he
Yep.
knows that I'm here for him, but I'm not gonna help support his self-destructive
Yeah.
behavior.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna help
Absolutely.
fund it,
Yeah.
but I'm here. And so I am trying to help other parents realize it's not just uh, hand him weed or
Yes.
shut him out of your life forever. There's this
Yes.
middle path that I hope will help him to recover someday.
It
Do
will.
you feel like you are recovered and you will never touch heroin or any of it again? Or are you constantly having to work at it?
Well, it's always a part of my life, but not in the way that every day anymore is surrounding by me needing to stay clean or getting triggered. I do not suffer from triggers like I did. That
Okay.
world for me, it would be so much of a hassle to restart at this point. Like I'm 8 years clean. I wouldn't
uh,
know who to call or where to go at this
yeah,
point.
you'd
And
have to
it's
start all
it's
over.
little things like that are part of what I invented in the beginning of my recovery was my recovery battle plan. And that recovery
Mhm.
battle plan changes with every year. The first year it
Huh.
was how am I going to drive to work and not drive by the old places that I used to stop at?
Mhm.
because I didn't want to suffer unnecessarily. I knew it was going to be hard
Yeah.
enough. If I could get
Yeah.
out in front of some of this stuff, I did.
Yeah. Just don't even go there. Don't even.
Exactly. Let's
Yeah.
just quit it. Let's do something else.
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
now it looks more like, you know, continuing to find my authentic self other than just my external body. It's more about continuing my path back towards the divine of myself, and it's those things. It's being
Mm.
mindful. It's going outside of suffering, because I know now that every situation that comes into my life now is a blessing for me. It's an opportunity,
Mm.
or it's an opposition, and the choice is mine. And there's no right or
Mhm.
wrong choice. There's just consequences either way.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so I don't have to live in shame for myself if that turn didn't go right. I just make another turn. And so
Nice.
that's kind of what my recovery looks like today, is constantly and consistently being in growth to be, my best self, and give as
Mhm.
much of myself as possible and nurture myself as much as possible.
Mhm.
So that's what recovery
Nice.
looks like for me today.
That sounds amazing. And I'm sure that your podcasts and other things you do, your YouTube and all that, is helping your own recovery. Yeah.
Oh gosh, yes, absolutely. The accountability is great for me.
Mhm.
Um, and knowing and giving it away, and being able to see it help touch other lives, because that's all I ever wanted. Because I was a lost cause. Like, I was the cause
Mm.
that, my family all knew that I was going to
Mm.
be out. They made their peace with my death a long time ago.
Wow. Uh-huh.
I had made peace with it. So when I
Wow.
come to share myself with these people, and I don't hold anything back, because if I really can make it out of this, I promise you, you can
Mhm.
too. And it doesn't matter where you are. If you don't have a stitch of clothing and you don't have a home, I know that.
Mhm.
And
Mm.
so I know that if I can do this, then everyone else can as well. They
Wow.
just got to find that one thing, I call it, that one thing that becomes bigger than they are. And it's not
Mm.
shameful if it's not your kids, if you're a parent, and it's not shameful if it's not something outside of you, you know, just find what it is, like, for me, it was my son, and not being that hypocrite and giving him the chance.
Mhm.
I didn't want to ruin his life. But for
Mhm.
somebody else, it might be something else. It,
Mhm.
it, find whatever it is that can be bigger than you, that can help you
Uh-huh.
pull through these things.
Well, I'm sure people listening are going to be inspired to just reach for that, whether they're
I
addicted
hope
or
so.
not, to just
Yeah.
continue to reach for finding their best selves and
Yes.
keep working on becoming truer and truer to yourself.
Yes.
How can people get a hold of you?
If they want to get a hold of me, it is very, very easy. You can go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/recovery soul food, iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spotify, also Facebook, Recovery Soul Food, and at Instagram right now. We're doing a lot of stuff on Instagram and TikTok with 1 minute
Mm.
small videos.
Ah,
And that is recovery_soul food on Instagram, and
mhm.
TikTok is recovery soul food. And the Transgender Mentor, if you're interested in that, it's basically the same thing. We've got YouTube and Facebook, and all of that is also on Instagram. So we're everywhere.
All right, and I'll list all that on the description. And you can find Safe Home Podcast in all those places too, except I haven't really gotten into TikTok. I don't know what to do. I need
It,
to figure that out because I
it
know that
takes a
lots of
little
people are
while.
on there that probably need some help. But
Yes, especially parents. I think that'd be really great.
yeah, so I am going to look into that.
Good.
So I'm gonna go watch your TikToks right now.
Well, thank
So
you. Thank you. I
yeah,
appreciate this so much. I just want to tell you thank you for what you're doing, and I really, really appreciate you sharing your journey. And I think that it's much bigger, than even you understand how big it is.
mm,
So thank you for being part of the family that's done their recovery, because recovery is
oh,
not just
thank
about
you.
addiction. The whole family is in recovery.
Right.
Gotta be.
It is a family system thing. It's not just
Yes.
one broken kid.
No.
Everybody needs to work on themselves.
Yes, 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 and yes. So thank you for being a vehicle for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm so glad our paths crossed, and I'm
Me too.
sure they will cross many more
Oh,
times.
yes.
So Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you very much for your support for our little family and for Safe Home Podcast. Please share this episode with anyone you know who's struggling with addiction or their gender or, gosh, any issue where they are needing some real inspiration and some real guidance. Elsie has so much to offer and to share. So please share this episode. And support us on Patreon if you're able and interested, patreon.com/safehome. And find us on all the socials. And Elsie and I want you to
Stay safe.
safe.